All right, so in this video, I just want to talk about why Reishi is called the Great Protector. You may have seen that term, or people refer to it in that manner. And basically, it just comes down to kind of two major components that I've seen over, wow, the almost 20 years that I've been consuming Reishi, and what I've seen from tens of thousands of my customers and clients that have been using it as well. Basically, it kind of comes down to two major things. The first is, at least for Reishi, and what makes it really famous is kind of its anti-stress, calming, grounding, soothing sort of properties. And for me, this was the biggest thing that really got me interested in Reishi and really got me interested in tonic herbs in general, way back in, I think, 2004 or 5 when I first got into Reishi. This is before no one knew anything really about medicinal mushrooms, and it was such a weird, crazy, small fringe thing, whereas now it's kind of big and trendy. Basically, at least for me, it was something that for the first time I was able to just kind of calm and settle and feel like everything relaxed and open, because I was already trying to do some yoga and meditation and stuff at that time, for like anxiety and stress and all the post-teenage angst that I felt, being in my early 20s, just out of high school, getting into college, trying to figure out my life and really what I wanted to do and the direction I wanted to go. And Reishi really allowed me to kind of sit and focus, because previous to that, I had been using cannabis, in high school, whatever, trying to deal with stress and anxiety and have like creative inspiration, all these different things. But then once I took Reishi, I realized like, whoa, I'm getting all of that plus a lot more with none of the side effects and none of the, at least at that time, none of the illegal, kind of ramifications. It was just kind of all upside. So once I discovered Reishi and some of the other tonic herbs, it was just kind of game over for that whole other chapter in my life. It was just kind of case closed, and I moved on, because I realized I was able to just get way more calm and grounded and centered, but just that. And it was something that built and lasted over a longer period of time, to where I was able to feel more creative, just kind of all the time, and almost to the point to where I almost felt too creative, where I was like, I couldn't turn it off. I was just filling up, notebooks with poetry and different things that I was writing. And, honestly, at that point, kind of college became very easy, whereas previously I'd always felt a little foggy headed, and it was kind of always a struggle. And all of a sudden one day something just clicked, and it was like, oh, this is really not that difficult whatsoever. And I was able to just kind of breeze through and really get good grades and kind of move through it. It was really not that big of a deal. So that's definitely something that I saw for myself personally, and I've gotten hundreds and hundreds of testimonials over the years of customers and clients and friends and people just having a very similar, if not in many cases the same exact experience. So that's really one of the major things why people might call it the Great Protector, or people call it like kind of a spiritual herb, even though I wouldn't really go that far. But I can see why people would say that, and why maybe it's been regarded in that way. Because anything that's going to calm you, chill you out, help you feel more centered and focused, and give you kind of a grounded sense of detachment, so you can more accurately look at situations and problems without so much emotional noise or fog, so that you can kind of find your path in or out of the fog, so you can make a better decision. That's really how people's lives can change from something very similar, or from something very simple and easy like this. So the second benefit, aside from what we just discussed, would be kind of the immune system, immune balancing, because Reishi is unique in that it's not immunostimulant or immunosuppressant. It's something that can regulate and balance the immune system. So things that are excessive, allergies, autoimmune things, that can calm them down, like immunodeficiencies, that kind of bring them up. And it's something Reishi has, but many other medicinal mushrooms share a similar thing. But where Reishi is different is it has all the calming stuff that we discussed previously, whereas something like chaga or turkey tail or shiitake or maitake might have some of the immuno support, but they're not going to have the kind of mental, emotional support that Reishi will have. So the fact that Reishi can have all of these things and bring it together, among a dozen other benefits, working on many different organ systems, which we won't get into in this video, Because to put it in context, I mean, I once did like an entire 7-hour audio course just going over all the benefits of reishi and all the different things and really breaking it down. So that's obviously not what we're gonna do right now, but that is how many benefits it really has. So basically, yeah, once people's immune systems can kind of regulate, it's amazing how much that's affecting how we feel, but how we don't necessarily realize it. Just inflammation and like chronic immune irritation. Like for me personally, to give you another story, like for a long time I thought I had anxiety or whatever, but then actually I realized it was just basically like a indigestion kind of a thing. Because once I calmed down enough and had enough stability, I could see this thing arise that I used to label as anxiety, and I realized like, oh wait, it's actually just inflammation. And then once I kind of got rid of that, I was like, oh, I don't really have anxiety. It's not this like complicated, mental schema. It's actually just, at least in my case, a very simple physiological response of inflammation that I'm interpreting as feeling anxious. So it's really fascinating to me how much inflammation and these different just kind of physiological mechanisms really influence the way people think and feel, and then they interpret it as if it's this like existential thing that somehow their soul or their psyche is broken and all this like complicated stuff. And sometimes that is true. We don't want to deny that, but many times I think it's just simple inflammation or simple immune system being really out of balance, being really whacked out. So the fact that reishi can, have the calming effects that it does and really help people deal with stress in a more effective way and sleep better and feel more calm and regulate a bunch of other things and have all these immune system supporting benefits and being safe to take really, over the long term. It's just, why people call it the great protector and why it's really regarded as really one of the top herbs. And at least for me, I've had my company for well over a decade now, and reishi has always been the top selling product, like for well over 12 plus years now. Reishi is like number one. And it's large in part for these reasons that I have people that, honestly almost like have an emotional meltdown if I'm like out of stock of it, or for whatever reason there's some supply chain interruption as has occurred over the last few years. Like it becomes one of those things people really rely on, people really becomes a really part of their life. For me, for a solid 8 or 10 years, it was something that I took religiously, and really it did a lot of good for me and really helped me out quite a lot. It's done that for thousands and thousands of my customers from all over the planet, from all walks of life, all age groups, whatever. But that's not to say, I will say it doesn't work for everyone. There's certain people that I noticed their digestion is like extremely weak. It can kind of give them like loose stools or whatever. And then certain people that are used to functioning way up here in terms of their stress level, they take reishi and it brings them down even just a little bit. They interpret that as it makes them feel tired or sluggish or lethargic, and then they interpret that as a negative thing, but it just means actually maybe they're coming down from their stress threshold a little bit. And because the thing is the longer you live in that state, everything else down and below it you kind of forget about, because you just don't experience it, because you're just used to maybe experience like this chunk of the threshold, maybe you're a kid and you're more calm, and then as you get older it just moves up. So then your spectrum of normality is just way up here. Even when people sleep, sometimes it's like they're still way up here. They're still, I've had periods in my life that are like that, where even when you're quote unquote sleeping and resting, you're still up here. Like you're still stressed and like high strung, but you just don't realize it because your unit of measure has adjusted and moved up here. So, having things like reishi and other things can help gradually bring that down, so then we're actually functioning more closer to being normal and relaxed. So yeah, that's why I've personally took reishi for a huge chunk of my life, and why I really recommend it, and why people regard it so highly. So if you want to learn more about that, click the link below or visit hyperionherbs.com.